Rain slammed into the windshield like thousands of furious fists. The wipers thrashed back and forth in a frenzy, and still they could not clear the white sheet of water that swallowed everything ahead. The mountain road in Montana curled through a forest of pitch-black pines, devouring the weak reach of the headlights from an old, worn Subaru. Ava Mitchell should not have been out on a night like this. The hospital had called to say she had forgotten the prescription log, a call that could have waited until morning. But routine was the only thing she still had to hold on to after the past 2 years. To break it, even once, felt like prying open a door she had tried to keep locked, no matter the cost. Her headlights caught something lying in the middle of the road. Her heart cinched tight. A deer, Ava told herself. Deer ran across these roads all the time. But as the car slowed, the shape was all wrong. Too angular, too long, too human. She stopped the car about 20 meters away, her hands trembling on the steering wheel. Instinct screamed at her. Drive on. Call 911 from somewhere safe. Do not get involved. She had learned this lesson before. Getting involved meant pain. It meant loss. It meant standing in a cemetery beneath a flat gray sky, watching a tiny coffin sink into the earth. Maddie, her 7-year-old sister, the child she had raised since their parents died, the only person she had left in the world. Maddie, who had drowned in the pool behind their house, in the 10 minutes Ava had been on the phone with the hospital. But Ava was still a nurse, even though she had quit, even though she had chosen isolation instead of healing. Some things carved themselves into your DNA. You cannot ignore them, not really. She grabbed the emergency bag from the trunk and stepped out into the storm. Rain soaked through her coat within seconds, plastering her honey blonde hair against her pale face. But she barely noticed. Every sense narrowed to the figure lying motionless on the asphalt. A man. On his side, one arm trapped beneath him, the other reaching out as if pleading for someone who would never come. Blood spread beneath his chest, mixing with rainwater into pale pink ribbons that ran toward the drainage ditch. His suit was expensive. Ava could tell even in the dark. Charcoal gray, perfectly tailored before the holes tore it apart. Bullet holes. Ava's breath caught. 2 wounds. One in his left shoulder, one in his hip. Her fingers found his pulse at the side of his neck by pure reflex. Nothing. And then, faint, trembling, stubborn, a heartbeat, life clinging on. Can you hear me? His eyelids fluttered, opened, eyes as black as obsidian, cold even on the edge of death, locked onto hers with something that made Ava step back without meaning to. The look of a predator, even while lying in the rain waiting to die. Hospital, she said, her hand already moving for her phone. You need. His hand snapped up, impossibly fast, clamping around her wrist with enough strength to make Ava hiss in pain. No hospital. His voice was rough, but there was steel underneath it. They will find me. They will kill me. Ava stared into those black eyes and saw the truth. She saw desperation too, the kind she had stared at in the mirror for 2 years, the kind that belongs to someone who has lost everything and is holding on to life by their fingernails. I can't deal with gunshot wounds in the middle of the road, she heard herself say, steadier than she felt. I need tools, a sterile environment, your house, not a question, a gamble on the kindness of a stranger. Please, I just need to live through tonight. Every shred of reason told her to refuse. Call the police. Let someone else handle this nightmare. But Ava thought of the nights she lay awake, wishing she could go back, wishing she had saved Maddie, the only person she had failed. My car is over there, she heard herself say. Can you move if I help you? He nodded, and Ava knew she had just made a decision she would regret. After she got him into the back seat and covered him with a blanket, she returned to the steering wheel. Before Ava started the engine, his voice drifted from behind her, weak but clear. My name is Vincent, and I am truly sorry for what is about to happen to your life. If you want to know what happens next, please tap like to support me. Share this video with anyone who loves intense romantic stories, and do not forget to subscribe to the channel so you do not miss the next part. Getting him to his feet was a nightmare. Vincent was at least 1.85 meters, heavy with dense muscle even as blood left his body drop by drop. Ava slid her shoulder under his right arm, trying not to brush the wound in his left shoulder, but every step wrung a low groan from him. His feet dragged across the soaked road, his expensive leather shoes now smeared with mud and blood. The rain kept coming, merciless, turning everything into a slick, freezing mess. It was 20 steps from where he had fallen to the car, but for Ava it felt like 20 kilometers. With every step she feared he would collapse and pull her down with him. With every step she asked herself what the hell she was doing. When she finally managed to shove him into the back seat, Vincent was almost completely unconscious. His head lolled to one side, black hair pasted to his forehead, his skin gone a frightening ash gray. Ava pulled the emergency blanket over him, forcing herself not to look at the pool of blood spreading across the seat cushion. Her old Subaru would never be clean again. She threw herself into the driver's seat, her hands shaking so badly she had to try 3 times to get the key into the ignition. The engine roared to life, and Ava hit the gas, leaving behind a smear of rain-diluted blood on the empty road. 12 minutes. 12 minutes from here to her cabin. She had driven this road hundreds of times over the past 2 years, but it had never felt this long. Her eyes kept flicking between the road ahead and the rearview mirror. Each time another car's headlights flashed in the glass behind her, her heart clenched. They will find me. They will kill me. His words echoed in her head. Who were they? Why would they want to kill a man in an expensive suit on a mountain road in Montana? And more importantly, why was she driving that man home instead of calling the police like a normal person? Ava gripped the steering wheel until her knuckles turned white. She was not normal. She had not been normal since the day she found Maddie floating in the pool. Blonde hair fanned out like seaweed, blue eyes wide open, staring up at a sky that meant nothing to her anymore. Ava had died that day. What remained was a body that could walk, could breathe, could drive to work and come home, over and over, like a broken machine. Maybe that was why she stopped. Maybe some part of her wanted to feel something, anything, even fear. The cabin appeared through the rain like a familiar ghost. A small wooden house at the end of a dirt road, 5 kilometers from the nearest neighbor, 20 minutes by car from town. She had bought it with the insurance money after selling the old house. The house with the pool. The house she could not step into without hearing Maddie's laughter. This place was a fortress of loneliness, a voluntary prison, the place she came to disappear from the world, and now she was bringing a dying man into it. She parked as close to the door as she could, killed the engine, and sat still for a second in the dark. Rain hammered the roof like funeral drums. In the rearview mirror, she saw Vincent's chest still rising and falling, still alive, still time. Ava drew a deep breath, opened the car door, and stepped back into the storm. Dragging him into the house was harder than getting him into the car. Vincent was fully unconscious now, his body a limp block of soft lead. Ava used everything she had, hooking an arm through his belt and hauling him inch by inch over the threshold, down the hallway, into the living room. Pain knifed through her back. Her hands burned from the friction, but she did not stop until she got him onto the old sofa. Blood had soaked through the blanket, dripping onto the wooden floor. Ava stood there, panting, staring at the stranger stretched out in the middle of her living room. He looked like he was already dead, but she was a nurse. She knew what death looked like, and this was not it. Not yet. Ava did not allow herself to stand still for even one more second. She rushed to the bedroom, to the place where she kept the box she should have thrown away a long time ago. A white plastic container sat beneath the bed, dusted with a thin film, but inside it was as intact as the day she carried it home from the hospital. Surgical gloves, hemostats, medical scissors, suture needles, absorbable thread, antiseptic, sterile gauze, rolled bandages, even a vial of local anesthetic she had taken before she quit. She did not know why she had kept all of it. Maybe because she could not fully let go of who she used to be. Maybe because some part of her still believed that one day she would need it. Tonight, that part had been right. She dragged the coffee table closer to the sofa, spread a clean towel over it, and laid the tools out as if this were an emergency room and not a living room in a remote cabin. The ceiling light was not bright enough, so she pulled a table lamp from the corner and aimed it straight at Vincent. Under the sickly yellow glow, he looked even worse than she had imagined. Skin the color of ash, lips drained pale, cold sweat beading on his forehead, even as his body shivered from heat loss. Ava cut away the blood-soaked suit jacket, then the white shirt beneath it. The expensive fabric tore under the scissors, exposing the body underneath. A broad chest, hard muscle across his abdomen, olive skin now washed out by blood loss, and 2 wounds. She assessed the shoulder first. The bullet had gone clean through, entering from the front and exiting the back, ripping muscle but missing bone. A relatively clean wound, by the standards of gunshot victims. Blood still seeped, but it was not spurting, which meant no major artery had been hit. She could handle this one. But the wound at his hip turned her blood cold. The entry hole sat just beneath the right ribs, but there was no exit. The bullet was still inside. She had no idea where it had lodged. Maybe near the kidney, maybe close to the intestines, maybe causing internal bleeding she could not see. This was the kind of work meant for a surgeon in an operating room with modern machines, not for a nurse who had been out of practice for 2 years, standing in a living room lit by a single table lamp. But he had said no hospital, and if she called an ambulance, he would die for another reason before the wound had time to finish the job. She had no other choice. Ava pulled on gloves, sprayed antiseptic over both wounds. Vincent jerked, a ragged groan tearing from his throat even though he was not fully awake. She injected local anesthetic around the shoulder wound, waited a few minutes for it to take effect, and then she began. Her hands shook so badly she had to stop, draw a deep breath, and force herself into calm. She had done this hundreds of times. She had controlled bleeding worse than this. She had kept her head while patients screamed, while blood sprayed her face, while chaos churned all around her. She could do this. She had to. And then muscle memory took over. Her hands moved as if they had a will of their own, recalling motions repeated thousands of times through 6 years in the emergency room. She used the hemostats to clamp the small vessels still bleeding. She blotted the area with gauze so she could see. Both the entry and exit wounds had to be cleaned, debris removed, bits of fabric and grit the bullet might have dragged in with it. She worked with care, with precision, trying not to think about who this man was, why he had been shot, and who might be searching for him out there in the storm. Vincent groaned when she started to stitch. Even with the anesthetic, his body reacted to the invasion. Muscles twitching, head rolling from side to side. His eyelids fluttered, and Ava was afraid he would wake up halfway through. She stitched faster, each pass of the needle steady and sure, drawing the torn edges of skin back together. Blood still seeped between the sutures, but less, and then less. When she finished the last stitch in the shoulder, covered it with sterile gauze, and wrapped it tight, Vincent suddenly opened his eyes, those black eyes fixed on her, clouded with pain but still sharp enough to raise the hair on her arms. He did not speak. He only watched her for a long, silent moment, as if memorizing the face of the woman saving his life. Then his eyes slid shut, his head tipped to the side, and his body went loose again, unconscious. Ava let out a breath she did not realize she had been holding. The shoulder was done, but the wound at his hip was the real test, and she did not know if she had the strength, the skill, or the courage to face it. Ava did not allow herself to rest. She took a swallow of cold water, wiped the sweat from her forehead with the back of her hand, then turned back to the wound at his hip. This was the real monster. She injected more local anesthetic around the area, more than usual, because she knew what came next would hurt beyond anything medicine could fully block. She disinfected the wound again, checked her instruments, drew a deep breath, and began. The entry hole was smaller than she expected, only about the width of her little fingertip, but beneath the skin was an entire world of chaos, torn muscle and clotted blood. She used the forceps to widen the wound so she could see deeper inside, and Vincent jerked it once even in unconsciousness. His groan sounded like an injured animal, low and brutal with pain. Ava bit her lip and forced herself to continue. 3 hours. 3 hours she sat there, folded over the body of a stranger, forceps in hand, probing inside the wound as if searching for a needle in a haystack. The bullet had not traveled straight. It had changed direction when it struck a rib, and now it lay somewhere deep within, evading her like a cunning beast. Sweat streamed down Ava's forehead, ran along the bridge of her nose, and sometimes slipped into her eyes, making her blink hard just to keep her vision clear. Her back ached as if someone had driven nails into her spine. Her neck had gone rigid from holding the same posture too long, but she did not stop. She could not. Vincent passed out 2 more times during the ordeal. The first time, she thought she had lost him. Her own heart seemed to freeze when she checked his pulse and found nothing for a few seconds that stretched into an eternity. Then it returned, faint but present, and she nearly cried with relief. The second time happened when her forceps touched the bullet. His body arched as if shocked by electricity, a strangled scream trapped in his throat, and then he collapsed, motionless. This time she did not panic. She was too exhausted to panic. She checked his pulse, confirmed he was still alive, and went back to work. Finally, after 3 hours, the tip of the forceps struck something hard and cold. Metal. The bullet. Ava held her breath, adjusted her angle, and pulled. The bullet slid free with a wet, sickening sound, and she let it drop into the steel bowl beside her with a sharp clink. It lay there under the lamp, gleaming, misshapen, slick with blood, a tiny piece of metal that had nearly killed a man. Ava stared at it for a second, then turned back to the wound. The job was not finished. She stitched him in layers. Deep muscle first, then the shallower muscle, and finally the skin. Each stitch was even and sure, even as her hands trembled with exhaustion. When the last stitch was done, she wrapped the wound, then sat upright and felt the whole room tilt. She had to grip the side of the sofa to keep from falling. One more thing. Fluids. He had lost too much blood. She took an IV bag from the medical box, found a vein in his arm, and drove the needle in. Not ideal. Not enough. but better than nothing. When everything was finished, Ava no longer had the strength to do anything else. She sagged into the armchair beside the sofa, still wearing clothes smeared with blood, her hands still in filthy rubber gloves. The clock on the wall read close to 3 in the morning. Outside, the rain still fell, lighter than before but steady, tapping at the roof. In the small living room, Vincent lay motionless on the sofa, his chest rising and falling in a regular rhythm. His skin still pale but no longer that terrible ashen gray. Alive. She had kept him alive. Ava's gaze dropped to the steel bowl on the table, where the bullet lay silent, like a beast that had been tamed. Proof of the wildest night of her life. Proof that she had brought a shot stranger home and cut a bullet out of him with tools in her living room. She should have been afraid. She should have regretted it. But in that moment, she was too tired to feel anything at all. Her eyelids grew heavy, and before she understood what was happening, darkness swallowed her whole. Sunlight slipped through the curtains and woke Ava. She startled upright, her neck stabbing with pain from sleeping slumped in the chair all night, and it took her a few seconds to remember what had happened. Then her eyes went to the sofa, where Vincent lay. He was still motionless, but the color in his skin was less washed out than it had been last night. His chest still rose and fell in a steady rhythm. The IV bag was nearly empty. Ava stood, stretched her aching body, and began the work of a new day. Change the IV, check his temperature, and most important, change the dressings on both wounds. She was bent over, peeling away the old bandage on Vincent's shoulder, when she felt something shift. A small movement. Then she looked up and met black eyes already open, fixed on her. Ava almost dropped the roll of gauze in her hand. He was awake. She did not know for how long, and he had been watching her with a hawk-sharp stare that missed nothing. She recovered quickly and went on as if nothing had happened. But her fingers trembled, just slightly, and she knew he saw it. "You are a doctor." Vincent's voice was rough from hours without speaking, but it still carried that warm, low timbre. Not a question. A statement. "A nurse," Ava answered shortly, without looking up. "A former nurse." A pause. "Former. Quit 2 years ago." She removed the last pad of gauze and checked the stitches. No sign of infection. "Good. And yet, you kept enough equipment to cut a bullet out of someone in your living room." Ava's hand stopped. At last she looked at him. "You are alive, aren't you? Do not complain." One corner of Vincent's mouth lifted, almost a smile. "I am not complaining. I am impressed." She did not reply. She simply went back to dressing the wound, but she could feel his gaze moving around the room, taking everything in with the attention of someone used to reading a space. A small living room with spare furniture. No family photos on the walls. No sign of a second person. A single mug in the sink. One pair of shoes by the door. Everything screamed one word. Lonely. "You live alone." Again a statement, not a question. Ava clenched her jaw. "That is not relevant to you. It is relevant to me, when I am lying on your sofa, with 2 bullets just taken out of my body." Silence. Ava finished wrapping his shoulder and moved to the wound at his hip. She had to pull the blanket down, exposing the hard plane of his abdomen, and she forced herself not to notice the heat of his skin under her fingertips. "A cabin in the woods," Vincent went on, thoughtful now. "At least 20 minutes from the nearest town. No neighbors in sight. You chose this place on purpose. You are running from something." Ava's head snapped up, her eyes meeting his. For an instant, she saw the danger in those black eyes. Not the danger of him hurting her. The danger of him seeing through her. Seeing past the shell she had built over 2 years, straight into what she was trying to hide. "I am not running," she said, her voice colder than she intended. "I just like quiet." Vincent did not answer, but his eyes said he did not believe her. He watched her for a long moment, then turned his head away, staring at the ceiling. "Thank you." His voice softened. "For saving my life. You did not have to do that." "Right," Ava said, returning to her work. "I did not have to." She finished bandaging his hip, cleared the instruments away, and stood. "You need rest. I will bring water and something for the pain. Do not move too much. The stitches could tear." She turned toward the kitchen, feeling his gaze burning into the back of her neck. The small kitchen gave her a few seconds of privacy to breathe. Her hands gripped the edge of the sink, her head bowed. He was dangerous, not only because someone had tried to kill him, but because of the way he looked at her, the way he read things she did not want anyone to know. She should throw him out the moment he could move. She should call the police and end this madness. But when she returned to the living room with a glass of water and a pill, and saw Vincent lying there with his black eyes closed, the sharp angles of his face softened by sleep, she knew she would not do it. Not yet, not now. 2 days passed in a tense, watchful silence. Ava tended Vincent's wounds, fed him thin porridge, made sure he took antibiotics, but the two of them avoided any conversation that went beyond the short, necessary phrases. She knew he was watching her. She could feel those black eyes tracking every movement, weighing every flicker of expression on her face. And she knew this silence could not last forever. Late on the second afternoon, with Ava at the kitchen table nursing a cup of coffee, and Vincent now able to sit up on the sofa, she decided to break it. "Who are you?" The question hung in the still room. Ava did not turn to look at him. She kept her eyes on the window, where the late sun painted the pine tops gold. "I told you," Vincent said. "I am Vincent. You know that is not what I mean." Only then did she turn, facing him. An expensive suit, handmade leather shoes, a watch that, I am guessing, costs as much as my car, 2 bullets in your body, and someone wants you dead, but you cannot call the police. "So who are you? Really?" Vincent met her gaze. Those black eyes did not waver. A long silence. Then he exhaled, as if making a decision he could not take back. "My last name is Moretti. Vincent Moretti. Do you know that name?" Ava felt the blood in her veins turn to ice. She knew. Of course she knew. Who lived in this part of the country and did not know the name Moretti? It appeared in newspapers, in the news, in whispered stories about an underworld. Ordinary people only dared to mention behind closed doors. The Moretti family, one of the 5 families that controlled organized crime across the region, and the man sitting on her sofa, the man she had cut open with her own hands in her living room, was the head of that family. "You are a Mafia boss." Her voice came out so flat, even she surprised herself. "I prefer to think of myself as a businessman with complicated client relationships. This is not the time to joke." "I am not joking." Vincent's face went hard again. "I run the Moretti family. Or rather, I did. Until I was shot and left to die on a mountain road." Ava set her coffee down on the table, her hand trembling a little. She should have been afraid. She should have called the police immediately. She should have thrown him out before anyone connected to him found this place. Instead, she asked the next question. "Who shot you?" Silence. Vincent looked down at his hands, and for the first time Ava saw something else in his eyes. Not the cold focus of a predator. Pain, deep and old, like a wound that had never healed. "Dante Russo," he said, his voice dropping. "My underboss. The man I trusted most for 14 years. He is not my blood, but I treated him like my brother. We grew up together. We fought together. We built this empire together. And then he decided he wanted my chair more than he wanted to stand beside it." Ava lowered herself into the chair across from him, a safe distance, but close enough to see his face clearly. "How did it happen?" "An ambush. In the parking lot of a restaurant I used to go to. Dante and 3 gunmen were waiting. I knew something was wrong the moment I saw them, but I was arrogant enough to think I could manage it." He let out a short, bitter sound that was almost a laugh. "The first bullet hit my shoulder. The second hit my hip. They left me there, certain I would die before anyone found me. They were wrong." Ava thought about the black road in the rain, the motionless shape in the headlights. "You crawled to the main road, half a mile through the woods, in the rain, with 2 bullets inside me." Vincent looked at her. His gaze was no longer sharp, only exhausted. "I knew if I stayed where they left me, I would die. The main road was my only chance." Ava studied him. A man who had run a criminal empire, ordered God knew how many terrible things, lived his whole life in blood and violence. She should have been disgusted. She should have been afraid. But all she saw now was a man betrayed by the person he had loved most, and she understood that feeling. She understood the pain of losing someone you trusted, even if her loss had come in a different form. "Why did you not throw me out?" Vincent's question came softly, as if he had read her thoughts. "Why did you not call the police from the beginning?" Ava was silent for a long time. She did not know the answer. Or maybe she did, and she did not want to admit it. "Because I know what it feels like to be left to die," she whispered. "Not literally. But I know." Vincent did not ask for more. He only looked at her with those deep, dark eyes, as if he were seeing something in her that even she could not see in herself. And in that moment, in that remote cabin, between 2 strangers carrying wounds no one could heal, something began to take shape. Ava did not know what it was. She only knew she had not thrown him out, and she would not. The days that followed moved in a strange rhythm neither of them had expected. Ava woke at 6 in the morning, made coffee, put together a simple breakfast, and then began the routine of caring for Vincent's wounds. She changed dressings, checked for signs of infection, made sure he took antibiotics and pain medication. Vincent grew stronger. He could sit up on his own without help now, even take a few short steps around the room, but he was still weak. He still needed rest. And he stayed in her small cabin like an uninvited guest no one truly wanted to send away. Vincent was not the kind of man who knew how to sit still. When he was not sleeping, he watched. Ava could feel those black eyes on her at all times. Whether she was cooking in the kitchen, reading in the corner, or standing at the window with a cup of tea gone cold in her hands. He watched the way she moved through her own space, her steps light as if she feared disturbing someone, even though the house held only 2 people. He watched the way she avoided looking at the picture frame turned face down on the bookshelf, the way her gaze skimmed past it every time she walked by, as if it did not exist. He watched the way she smiled, rare and strained, never reaching her eyes. And he watched the way she looked at him when she thought he was not paying attention, with something like curiosity braided with wariness, as if she did not know whether to fear him or trust him. By the 4th day, the touches began, not on purpose, or at least, that was what both of them told themselves. When Ava changed the bandage, her fingers brushed the skin of Vincent's abdomen, and he drew in a short breath. When she handed him medication, their hands met, and no one pulled away right away. When she helped him stand so he could make it to the bathroom, his arm looped around her shoulders and his hand rested at her waist longer than it needed to. Every touch left a hot afterimage on her skin, like a small current running up her spine. Ava tried to ignore it. Vincent did not bother to hide it. "You are a good nurse," Vincent said on the afternoon of the 5th day, while Ava checked the stitches at his hip. The wound was healing cleanly. "Why did you quit?" Ava's hand paused for a second, then kept moving. "Personal reasons." What kind of personal reason makes a skilled emergency room nurse leave her job and move to live alone in the woods? She did not answer. "The picture frame on the shelf," Vincent continued, his voice gentle but unyielding. "You avoid looking at it like it might bite you. Who is in it?" Ava stood up, gathering her instruments faster than usual. "You ask too many questions. I am in your house. You are taking care of me. You saved my life. I want to know about the woman who did that." Silence. Ava turned her back and walked toward the kitchen. "And I do not want to talk." She heard his sigh behind her. "All right," Vincent said, not sounding offended. "I will not force you. But Ava, you should know something." She stopped, but she did not turn around. "I am very good at waiting. And I am very good at seeing what people try to hide. You are hiding a very large pain. It is eating you from the inside. I recognize it because I used to be like that too." Ava did not answer. She went into the kitchen, closed the door, and stood there in the dimness, her hands gripping the edge of the sink. Her heart beat fast, not only from anger at being intruded upon, but from fear. Fear that he was right. Fear that he could see what she had been trying to hide for 2 years. Fear that if she stayed close to him long enough, she would not be able to hide it anymore. And worst of all, fear of the strange feeling growing in her chest whenever he was near. She did not want to feel. She had chosen numbness. But Vincent Moretti was waking things inside her that she had believed dead a long time ago. Ava woke at 2 in the morning to a small sound from the living room. She lay still for a moment, listening, her heart beating faster than normal. Then she recognized it. Footsteps, slow and careful. Someone trying not to make noise. Vincent. She pushed the blanket aside and stepped out of the bedroom, barefoot on the cold wooden floor. Moonlight poured through the large living room window, washing everything in a dim blue-silver glow. And there, by the window, stood Vincent. He wore an old t-shirt of her father's that she had found in the closet, too tight across his broad frame, but it was the only thing she had. One hand braced against the window frame for balance, his eyes fixed on the darkness outside. The way he stood no longer looked like the stance of a Mafia boss. It was the stance of a tired, lonely man, carrying a weight no one else could see. "You should be in bed resting," Ava said, her voice quiet in the still night. Vincent did not turn. "I cannot sleep. Nightmares. Memories," he answered, low and distant. "Sometimes they are worse than nightmares." Ava moved closer, stopping a few steps away. She did not know why she did it. Maybe because the moonlight made everything feel unreal, as if daytime rules no longer applied. Memories of Dante. Vincent was silent for a long time. Then he spoke, and his voice held none of its usual sharpness, only pure fatigue. "I keep remembering all the signs I missed. The times Dante asked about business plans he did not need to know. The phone calls he ended too quickly when I walked in. The way he looked at me these last few months, like he was calculating something. I saw it all, but I did not want to believe it." He turned to face her, and in the moonlight Ava saw something she had never seen on his face. Hurt, raw and uncovered. "I run an empire," he said, bitter. "I have hundreds of people under me. I built an information network that can tell me anything I want to know about anyone. I protected my family from every outside threat for 14 years. He stopped, his jaw tightening. "And yet I let the greatest enemy stand right behind me. Eat at my table. Call me brother. and I did not see it until the bullets went through me." Ava did not know what to say. She had no practice comforting a mafia boss. She was not even sure she should, but standing there, in the moonlight, looking at those black eyes full of pain, she did not see a criminal anymore. She saw a man betrayed by someone he loved. "You could not have known," she heard herself say. "No one can know when the betrayal comes from the person closest to you. Trust is what makes us blind. It was not your fault." Vincent watched her, his gaze intent. "You say that like you understand." Ava went rigid. She had said too much, but it was too late to pull it back. "I understand loss," she said after a long silence. "I understand what it is to wonder what you missed, what you could have done differently. It eats at you from the inside, does it not? Every day, every hour. You replay the moment and ask yourself if things would have been different, if you had paid more attention, been more careful, trusted less." Vincent did not answer. He only looked at her. And in his eyes, Ava saw recognition. He knew she was not only talking about him. He knew she was talking about herself. "We are more alike than you think, Ava," he said, light as breath. Two people running from the ghosts of their own lives. She did not deny it. She could not. Instead, she stood beside him, both of them looking out into the night, sharing a silence that did not need words. And for the first time in 2 years, Ava did not feel completely alone. The last of the tears finally stopped, but Ava still stood there, exhausted and hollow, as if she had just set down a burden she had carried for 2 years. Vincent's hand still held hers, warm and steady. Then she felt his other hand rise, his thumb gently wiping the wet track from her cheek. The tenderness of it made her heart ache. She lifted her eyes to him, and in the dim moonlight, Vincent's black gaze was no longer sharp the way it had been on the first day. It was warm, gentle, and it looked at her as if she were something precious he feared might break if he touched her too hard. "This is a bad idea," Vincent whispered, but his hand did not leave her face. "Maybe," Ava answered, her voice trembling. "Tell me to stop," he said, his eyes locked on hers. "Say one word and I will step back. We will pretend none of this happened." Ava knew she should say that word. She knew this was madness, dangerous, an open door for pain to walk through. He was a mafia boss. She was a former nurse, running from her past. They came from 2 different worlds, and anything that happened between them would end in tragedy. She knew all of it, but when she opened her mouth, no word came out. Only silence, and that silence was everything Vincent needed. He kissed her. Not hurried, not rough, but slow and deep, as if he were drinking the last drops of water in a desert. His mouth was warm and soft, and Ava felt herself melt into the kiss. 2 years of loneliness, 2 years of numbness, 2 years of telling herself she did not deserve love. All of it shattered in the instant their mouths met. She slid her arms around his neck, pulled him closer, and the kiss turned more intense, more desperate. He kissed her like a man drowning, searching for air, and she answered like someone who had forgotten how to breathe for 2 years. They did not speak when Vincent led her toward the bedroom. They did not need words. That night, in the cabin in the woods, beneath moonlight spilling through the window, they found each other. Not the fever of blind desire, but the connection of 2 wounded souls reaching for healing. Vincent touched her as if she were the most precious thing in the world, careful and reverent, even though his injuries still hurt. And Ava let herself feel, let herself be loved, let herself live again after 2 years of merely existing. When dawn began to tint the horizon pink, they lay together, bodies intertwined, breath mingling. Vincent stroked her blonde hair, his fingers lazily tracing invisible lines along her shoulder. "Come with me," he said, his voice low and certain. "When I am healed, when I take back what is mine. Come with me, Ava." She lay still, feeling the beat of his heart beneath her palm. Part of her wanted to say yes, wanted to believe they could have a future. But the other part, the part that had witnessed too much loss, knew better. "Your world is too dangerous," she whispered. "You are a mafia boss, Vincent. People want to kill you. Your enemies would not hesitate to use me against you. I have lost enough. I cannot bear more loss." Vincent was quiet for a long time. Then he held her tighter, his mouth pressing a light kiss to the top of her head. "I understand," he said, and he could not quite hide the disappointment. "But you should know, Ava, that you woke something in me I thought had died a long time ago. Whatever you choose, I will not forget you." Ava did not answer. She only lay there, listening to his heartbeat, and wondering whether she had made the right decision, or whether she was pushing away the best thing that had happened to her since Maddie. 6 days had passed since that night. 6 days of waking up beside each other in the morning, of stolen kisses in the kitchen, of long nights, searching for warmth in each other's arms. Ava knew it was only temporary. a fragile bubble that could burst at any moment, but she allowed herself to live inside it, if only for a little while. Vincent was much stronger now. He could walk normally. He had even practiced a few gentle movements to build his strength back up. The wounds were healing, and they both knew what that meant. Their time was running out. On the morning of the 12th day, Ava woke up alone in bed. She found Vincent standing by the living room window, but not in the relaxed way he had stood there on other days. His shoulders were rigid. His jaw was clenched. His eyes were locked on the dirt road outside. "What is it?" Ava asked, and her voice trembled when she saw the expression on his face. Vincent did not turn. "There is a black SUV parked at the end of the road, dark-tinted windows, not moving. It has been 20 minutes. Ava's heart skipped a beat. She stepped closer, looked out the window, and saw it. The black vehicle gleamed like a predator lying in wait, motionless where her dirt road met the main road. Maybe it is someone pulling over to rest. She knew she was lying to both of them. Vincent shook his head. Those black eyes returned to the sharpness of the first day. Nobody stops there to rest, and nobody sits in a car for 20 minutes without a reason. They are watching. They found me. He turned, pulled a phone from his pocket. Ava did not know where he had gotten it. Maybe he had reached out to his people before, without her knowing. "Sal," he said into the phone, fast and hard. "They found me. I need people here right now." Silence. Then a curse. 40 minutes. "As fast as you can." He ended the call and looked at Ava. "Sal is 40 minutes away. We have to hold on until then." 40 minutes. For the first time since she brought Vincent home, Ava felt real fear. Not the vague fear of a future she could not control, but something older, raw, instinctive. The fear of prey that knows the hunter is close. She ran to the bedroom, yanked open the closet, and rummaged in the deepest corner. Her fingers found cold metal she had hidden away since moving here. Her father's gun. An old Glock that still worked, along with an unopened box of ammunition. She had never fired it. She was not even sure she remembered how to load it, but she carried it into the living room and put it in Vincent's hand. He looked at the gun, then looked at her, something flashing in his eyes. "You keep a gun in the house. It was my father's. I do not know how to use it, but I think you do." Vincent checked the weapon with the practiced ease of someone who had handled guns his whole life. He loaded it. He racked the slide. Then he looked back out the window. The SUV was still there, silent, threatening. "Ava, listen to me." His voice was low and serious. "If this goes bad, you run out the back door. There is a trail into the woods. 2 kilometers and you will reach the main road. Sal knows that point. He will find you. I am not leaving you. You have to live, Ava," Vincent said, his eyes burning. "I need to know you are safe. That is the only way I can fight without being distracted." Ava was about to argue, but a sound cut through her. An engine, coming closer. They both turned to the window and saw the black SUV driving straight toward the cabin, no longer hiding anything. It stopped in front of the house, and all 4 doors opened at the same time. 4 men stepped out, dressed in black, eyes cold as stone. Too late. Vincent tightened his grip on the gun. "They are here." The knocking came, slow and threatening. 3 knocks, like funeral drums. Then a voice carried in from outside, low and cold as steel. "Vincent Moretti, Dante wants to talk. Come out, and we can handle this like civilized men. Otherwise we will come in, and things will not stay civilized." Vincent stood perfectly still, the gun in his hand, his eyes flicking toward the window as he counted the people outside. 4 men, all armed. He had 1 handgun with 8 rounds, and a body that had not fully healed. The odds were almost nothing. He turned to Ava, and his black eyes burned with something she had never seen in him before. Fear. Not for himself. For her. "Ava. The back door. Right now." His whisper was urgent. "Run into the woods. Do not look back. Sal will find you. He knows where to look." She shook her head, her throat closing. "I am not leaving you. You have to live." Vincent's hand closed hard around her arm, his gaze boring into hers. "Listen to me. No matter what happens, you have to live. Promise me." Before Ava could answer, the front door blew open with a crash. 4 men poured inside, guns leveled straight at them. The one in front was built like a cabinet, shoulders as wide as the doorway, eyes cold as stone, a long scar running from his temple down to his jaw. Bruno. Ava did not know his name, but she knew that face would haunt her nightmares. "Vincent Moretti," Bruno said, his voice like gravel being crushed. "Long time. Dante really wants to talk to you." Vincent straightened, even though Ava knew he was hurting. His shoulders went rigid, his jaw tight, but his voice stayed frighteningly calm. "Bruno, I heard you started following Dante like a dog. did not think the rumor was true. The punch came so fast Ava did not even see it. Bruno's fist smashed into Vincent's face with a sickening sound, and Vincent staggered back, blood spilling from the corner of his mouth. Ava screamed and lunged toward him, but 2 other gunmen blocked her, grabbing her arms and holding her tight. "Let me go." She fought them, but they were too strong. "Let go." Bruno looked at her the way you look at an irritating insect. "Some backwoods woman," he snorted. "Not worth the trouble. Tie her up and leave her here. Dante does not care about Vincent's cheap girlfriends." Before Ava could protest, a plastic zip tie cinched around her wrists, tight enough to bite into skin. They shoved her down onto the floor and did not even look back. "Ava." Vincent's voice came rough with pain, but it was still full of feeling. She lifted her head and saw him being dragged toward the door by 2 gunmen, his eyes still on her. "Remember what I told you. Live." Then they hauled him out, and all she heard was the scrape of boots, the slam of a car door, the growl of an engine. The black SUV tore away, leaving dust and a deadly silence behind. Ava lay on the floor, her hands bound behind her back, her heart pounding as if it might burst. They took Vincent. They were going to kill him, and she was here on the floor like someone useless. No, she could not let that happen. She rolled onto her side, fighting to sit up even as her wrists burned from the zip tie. Her eyes swept the room, searching for anything that could help. Then she saw it, a shard of glass from the vase that had shattered when Bruno forced the door. She dragged herself toward it, turned her back, and began rubbing the zip tie against the sharp edge of the glass. Slow, agonizing. Blood started to seep from cuts on her wrists, but she did not stop. She thought of Vincent, of the black eyes that had looked at her one last time, of the promise she had not managed to speak. The tie snapped with a dry pop. Ava yanked her hands free, ignoring the blood, and surged toward the phone. Sal's number was still in Vincent's call history, on the phone Vincent had left on the table. She hit call, her heart hammering in her chest. 1 ring, 2. Then a low voice answered. "Who is this?" "Sal." Ava's voice shook, but it did not break. "It is Ava. They took Vincent. They are bringing him to Dante." A beat of silence. Then Sal's voice came back, cold as steel. "Where are you?" "I am coming now." And for the first time since the black SUV appeared, Ava felt a thin, fierce thread of hope. 15 minutes later, a black pickup truck tore onto the dirt road in front of the cabin and stopped with a scream of brakes. Ava was already at the door, her wrists still oozing blood from the cuts the glass had left behind, but she did not care. The truck door opened, and a man stepped out. He looked around 45, tall and solid as an old oak, his face marked with scars that told the story of a life built on violence. A long scar ran from his left temple down to his cheekbone, pulling one eye into a permanent slant, but those eyes were sharp as blades. They swept over Ava from head to toe in a single second, then stopped on her bloodied hands. "You are Ava," he said. "Not a question. The boss talked about you." "I am Sal Marchetti." Ava did not have time for greetings. "Where did they take him?" "The Merino warehouse at the riverfront," Sal answered, his voice low and rough. "That is where Dante has been operating since he announced Vincent was dead. A large warehouse, easy to defend. And full of his men. How many?" "About 12, but half of them are still loyal to the boss. They only follow Dante because they believe Vincent is dead. If they knew the boss was alive, they would turn on Dante," Ava said, her mind moving faster than it had in years. "But how do we tell them? We cannot storm in there with 2 people and hope to survive." Sal looked at her, his expression unreadable. "You have a plan." Ava drew a deep breath. What she was about to say was insane, reckless, something that could get her killed, but it was the only chance. "Dante has a girlfriend, right?" "Sophia." Sal frowned. "Yes. Sophia Russo. Blonde. Tall. Always in designer clothes." "How do you know?" "I do not. But I guessed. Men like Dante always keep a woman at their side to show off." Ava pointed at herself. "I am blonde too. I am tall too. In dim light, and with the right clothes, I can look enough like her to fool the guards." Sal stared at her as if she had grown another head. "You are going to pretend to be Sophia. Walk straight into Dante's den. I am going to walk in there. Find the men who are still loyal to Vincent, and shout that their boss is still alive," Ava said, her voice steadier than she felt. "Once they know the truth, Dante loses half his force. Then you and your people can attack." A long silence. Sal studied her, that scarred eye measuring her, weighing her. Then one corner of his mouth lifted, almost a smile. "You are crazy," he said. "Completely insane. You want to walk into a warehouse full of armed Mafia men, pretend to be the girlfriend of the man who shot my boss, and hope you are not recognized before you yell that Vincent is alive. That is the stupidest plan I have ever heard." He paused. But it might work, and the boss chose the right woman. 20 minutes later, Ava stood in front of the mirror in the cabin and did not recognize herself. Sal had brought clothes from one of Vincent's safe houses, outfits they kept for emergencies. A tight black dress, so expensive she was afraid a deep breath might ruin it. Red high heels, gold jewelry that caught the light. She had done heavy makeup under Sal's instructions. Sharp eyeliner, red lips, color in her cheeks. Her honey blonde hair was pinned up high, exposing her throat and bare shoulders. She was no longer Ava Mitchell, the former nurse hiding in a cabin in the woods. She was a woman of power, dangerous, a creature of violence and money. "A few basic Italian phrases," Sal said, as he drove toward the industrial riverfront. "Dove Dante" means "where is Dante?" "Lasciami passare" means "let me through." And most important, if anyone asks who you are, you say, "Sono Sofia, capisci?" "I am Sophia. Understand?" Ava repeated the words in her mind like a prayer. "Sono Sofia. Sono Sofia." She stared out the window as the lights of the harbor rose ahead, and her heart beat as if it wanted to jump out of her chest. She was about to walk into hell, and she did not know if she would walk out again. The Merino warehouse sat at the far end of the river docks, a massive block of dirty gray concrete with rusted metal doors and a weak yellow light leaking from grimy windows. The air tasted of diesel and rust mixed with engine oil, and something faintly rancid, the sharp, sour tang of damp decay rising in the night. Sal stopped the truck 2 blocks away, where the darkness could hide them. He looked at Ava one last time, the scarred eye solemn. "I will wait for the signal. When you shout that Vincent is alive, I will hit the back entrance with my men. Try not to die before we get in." Ava nodded, not trusting her voice. She opened the door, stepped out, and started walking toward the warehouse. Her heels clicked against the concrete in a steady, commanding rhythm. Ava forced her shoulders back, lifted her chin, and set her face into cold ownership, as if the entire harbor belonged to her. She was not Ava Mitchell anymore. She was Sophia, Dante Russo's girlfriend, a woman who lived close to danger and feared no one. She repeated it in her mind like a charm. "Sono Sophia. I am Sophia. I belong here." 2 gunmen stood at the main entrance, both big, both wearing the look of men who could kill without blinking. When they saw Ava approaching, their hands went toward their weapons at once. One of them stepped forward and blocked her path. "Stop. Who are you?" Ava did not slow. She kept walking, eyes like ice locked on him as if he were nothing more than an irritating insect. "Sophia." Her voice was sharp, threaded with annoyance. "Where is Dante? He promised me dinner and left me waiting for an hour. Do I have to come all the way here to find him?" The gunman hesitated. His eyes swept Ava from head to toe, taking in the expensive dress, the glitter of jewelry. The way she carried herself like power was her birthright. "Boss did not say anything about you coming," he muttered. "Because he does not know I came." Ava cut in, her tone turning even harder. "It is a surprise. Or rather, it is me checking whether he is doing something behind my back. Now let me through. Right now." The gunman glanced at his partner, uncertainty plain on his face. Neither of them wanted to stop the boss's girlfriend if she really was who she claimed to be. But neither of them wanted to let a stranger inside if she was not. In the end, the first man stepped aside. His eyes stayed suspicious, but he did not dare block her. "Office at the back," he grumbled. "Boss is there." Ava did not bother answering. She walked past them with her chin high, as if their permission was the most natural thing in the world. Inside, the warehouse was dark and cavernous, the smell of dampness mixed with metal and cigarette smoke. Stacks of wooden crates and metal containers rose toward the ceiling, forming narrow shadowed aisles and blind corners you could not see into. The weak yellow light from a few dangling bulbs only lit small patches, leaving most of the space drowned in darkness. Ava counted fast. 8 men visible, spread throughout the warehouse. Some played cards in a corner, some leaned against cargo and smoked. Some walked slow patrols, all of them armed, all of them dangerous. She moved straight toward the office at the back, where brighter light spilled through a door left slightly open. Her heart hammered like a drumline, but her steps never faltered. The gunmen inside watched her pass. Some frowned in suspicion. Some whistled in crude amusement, but no one stopped her. The expensive dress and her arrogant composure did exactly what they were meant to do. They thought she belonged here. They thought she was one of theirs. She reached the office door, took one last deep breath, and looked through the narrow gap. What she saw turned her blood to ice. Vincent sat in a wooden chair, his hands tied tight behind his back, his feet chained to the chair legs. His face was bruised and swollen, one eye nearly swollen shut, dried blood crusted at the corner of his mouth. And the shoulder wound, the wound she had worked so hard to stitch, had been torn open again, fresh blood soaking through a shredded shirt. They had beaten him brutally. And in front of Vincent, with his back to the door, stood a man Ava had never seen, but she knew exactly who he was. Dante Russo, the traitor, the man who had shot Vincent and left him to die on a mountain road, and the man whose girlfriend she was pretending to be. The warehouse turned into hell in an instant. Gunfire thundered from every direction. Screams, curses in Italian, the crash of crates tipping and slamming into the floor. Ava did not have time to be afraid. Survival took over her body, driving every movement like a machine. She whipped around toward Vincent and lunged for him while bullets tore through the air like a swarm of angry bees. The men loyal to Vincent, the men who had believed their boss was dead for nearly 2 weeks, were now swinging their guns toward the teammates they had stood beside yesterday. The chaos was perfect. No one knew who was on which side. No one knew where to aim. Ava dropped to her knees beside the chair where Vincent was bound, her trembling fingers searching for the knot cinched around his wrists. It was too tight. Her nails cracked as she fought it. Blood from the scrapes on her fingers made the rope slick beneath her touch. "Vincent," she whispered, her voice thick. "I am getting you out of here." "Behind you," Vincent snarled, rough with pain but still razor alert. Ava turned her head just in time to see Dante aiming a gun at her, gray eyes blazing with hate. The shot exploded. Ava felt fire tear through her left shoulder, hot and brutal, so sharp she almost screamed, but she did not stop. She could not stop. Her hands kept working the knot, fingers drenched in blood sliding over the rope. Finally the knot gave. Vincent yanked his hands free, not even looking at the red grooves carved into his wrists. He pushed himself up, swaying, his body still weak from blood loss and the beating, but his black eyes had regained the cold focus of a Mafia boss. Fueled by sheer adrenaline and a lethal will to survive, Vincent ignored the white-hot agony tearing through his healing stitches. He moved with a desperate speed that defied his broken body. One of Dante's gunmen charged at them, weapon raised. Vincent moved so fast Ava barely saw it. He slipped the strike, caught the man's arm, and twisted hard until bone cracked with a sick, snapping sound. The gun hit the ground. Vincent scooped it up, turned, and fired straight into the chest of another gunman who was aiming at Ava. The man dropped like a sack, blood spreading beneath the yellow light. The back door blew open with a crash. Sal and his people poured in like a flood, weapons roaring, bullets flying like rain. 5 men, 10 men, Ava could not count anymore. They fired at anyone standing with Dante, ruthless and efficient. The traitor's loyalists began to fall one by one, blood painting the concrete floor. The balance tipped fully toward Vincent. The remaining men started to drop their guns and surrender, hands raised high, faces drained white with fear. They knew what happened to traitors in this world. Ava slumped against the chair leg, one hand clamped over her bleeding shoulder. The bullet had only grazed her, tearing skin and muscle but not lodging inside. She would live. She would be fine. But in that moment, she did not think about herself. Her eyes stayed on Vincent. He stood in the middle of the wrecked warehouse, gun in hand, smeared with his own blood and the blood of his enemies. He was no longer the weak man who had lain on her sofa. He was Vincent Moretti, the head of the Moretti family, the ruler of an underground empire. And now he was taking back what belonged to him. Dante had been driven into a corner, his back to the wall, his gun still in his hand but shaking. Around him, his men were dead or surrendered. No one stood with him anymore. Those gray eyes darted, searching for an escape that did not exist. Then they locked onto Vincent as Vincent advanced, step by step, slow and threatening. There was nowhere to run. No hope left. "Dante," Vincent said, his voice cold as ice. He raised the gun, aiming straight at the center of the traitor's forehead. "Do you have anything you want to say before you die?" Dante stood with his back to the wall, gray eyes still darting for an opening even though he knew there was no hope left. The gun in his hand trembled, his finger resting on the trigger, but he did not dare squeeze. Around him, Sal's men had him boxed in tight, weapons leveled at him from every direction. One wrong step, one stupid movement, and he would be riddled with bullets. Vincent moved closer, slow and steady, his black eyes never leaving the traitor for even a second. Blood still seeped from the wound in his shoulder. His face was still bruised and swollen, but he stood upright like a king reclaiming his throne. "You thought you could take what is mine," Vincent said, his voice cold as winter ice. 14 years, Dante. 14 years I treated you like a brother. I shared everything with you. Power, money, trust. And you repaid me with 2 bullets. Dante gave a harsh, bitter laugh. He spat onto the floor, right in front of Vincent's feet. "You are weak," he snarled, gray eyes burning with hate. You let a woman into our world. You let feelings shape your decisions. You do not deserve to sit on that throne. I did what the family needed. I did what you did not have the guts to do. Vincent did not move. Not a single muscle in his face shifted. Then he tilted his head slightly, his gaze sliding toward Ava where she sat against the wall, her shoulder slick with blood. And then returning to Dante. Her, Vincent said, his tone so calm it was terrifying. That woman you looked down on walked straight into your den, fooled your gunman, and shouted the truth you tried to bury. She saved my life while you did not even understand what was happening. He stepped closer. The muzzle of the gun touched Dante's forehead. So let me ask you, Dante. Who is the weak one here? Dante did not answer. He could not. His gray eyes locked on the barrel inches from his face, his mouth pressed into a thin, rigid line. For the first time, Ava saw real fear on the traitor's face. Not the fear of a man facing death, the fear of someone who knows he has lost completely, lost everything, bet wrong, and now has to pay. Vincent lowered the gun. For a moment, Ava thought he might spare Dante, but then Vincent turned to Sal, black eyes flat with a coldness that held no mercy. Take him to the plane, Vincent said, as calmly as if he were talking about the weather. Clean it up. Sal nodded and signaled his men. They surged toward Dante, grabbed him, ripped the gun from his hand. Dante began to fight, shouting a mess of curses and pleas. Vincent! He screamed. Vincent? We are brothers. 14 years, Vincent. Do not do this. Do not. But Vincent had already turned away. He did not look back as Sal's men dragged Dante out of the warehouse. He did not look back as the traitor's screams echoed into the night, then faded into nothing. Vincent walked straight to Ava. She tried to stand, but her legs would not obey. Blood still ran from the wound in her shoulder, and dizziness began to wash through her from the loss. Vincent dropped to his knees beside her. His hands, smeared with blood, lifted her face gently, and he looked into her eyes with something Ava had never seen in him before. Not the cold focus of a mafia boss, not the sharp caution of a predator. Love, pure and fierce. You are crazy, he whispered, his voice unsteady. Completely crazy. You walked into a warehouse full of gunmen to save a mafia boss. You got shot because of me. He could not finish. Instead, he pulled her into his arms and held her tight, as if afraid she would vanish. And I love you, Vincent whispered into her hair. I love you, Ava Mitchell. Vincent's penthouse sat on the top floor of a luxury tower in the heart of the city, its glass walls looking out over a skyline glittering with light. It was late, but neither of them could sleep. They sat in the vast living room, Ava in a chair across from Vincent. The medical kit Sal had prepared laid out on the coffee table between them. She had showered and changed into clean clothes, something soft that someone had left for her in the bathroom, but the wound in her shoulder still ached whenever she moved. Vincent sat facing her, shirtless, his body marked with bruises and injuries, old and new layered on top of one another. The stitches in his shoulder, the ones she had worked so hard to place, had been torn partly open in the firefight, and she needed to sew him again. Ava worked in silence, her hands moving with the precision of an experienced nurse, even as pain pulsed through her own body. She injected local anesthetic, cleaned the wound, and began to stitch, one careful pass at a time. Vincent did not flinch. He simply sat still and watched her, black eyes following every movement. You are crazy, he said suddenly, breaking the silence. Walking straight into a warehouse full of gunmen, pretending to be my enemy's girlfriend, shouting in the middle of men who could have killed you at any moment. You knew you could die, did you not? Ava did not look up. She stayed focused on the next stitch. I knew. Then why did you do it? Because you would do the same for me. Silence. Ava finished the last stitch, cut the thread, and began to wrap the wound. When she was done, Vincent caught her hand, stopping her from standing. Now it is your turn, he said, his voice leaving no room for argument. Let me see your wound. Ava started to protest, but the look in his eyes quieted her. She pulled her sleeve down off her shoulder, revealing the grazing bullet wound, roughly dressed but still seeping. Vincent drew in a sharp breath at the sight of it, his jaw tightening. He took the supplies from the kit and began to clean the wound, his movements unexpectedly gentle for hands accustomed to holding a gun. I am sorry, he said as he dressed it. You got hurt because of me. You almost died because of me. I pulled you into this dangerous world, and you paid in blood. Ava looked at him, at the bruised face, at the black eyes filled with guilt. I walked into it willingly, she said softly. No one forced me. I made a choice, and I do not regret it. Vincent finished the bandage, but he did not let go of her hand. He studied her for a long moment, as if searching for something in her eyes. "Stay with me, Ava," he said, his voice low and full of feeling. "Not because you need protection, not because I owe you my life, but because I need you, because my life means more when you are in it, because for the first time in 14 years, I do not feel completely alone." Ava looked toward the window, where the city lights shimmered like a million stars. She thought of the cabin in the woods, the place where she had hidden for 2 years. She thought of mornings waking alone in a silence so thick it felt like it could choke her. She thought of long nights staring at the ceiling, wondering what she was still alive for. She thought of Maddie, of the pain she had carried like a weight she could never set down. For 2 years she had lived like a ghost, existing but not truly living. And then Vincent had appeared, bleeding out on a rain-soaked road, and pulled her back into the world of the living. "I do not want to go back there," she whispered, her eyes still on the city lights. "That emptiness, that silence. I lived like that for 2 years, and I do not want to keep living that way." She turned to Vincent, and for the first time since Maddie died, she allowed herself to hope. "I will stay. With you. Even if your world is dangerous. Even if I might regret it. But at least I will live. Really live. Not just exist." Vincent pulled her into his arms, holding her tight as if he never wanted to let go. And in the arms of the Mafia boss, in a penthouse looking out over the city at night, Ava Mitchell finally found where she belonged. 3 months passed like a dream Ava did not dare believe was real. Her life had changed completely, from a former nurse hiding in a cabin in the woods to the woman beside the most powerful Mafia boss in the Northwest. Vincent introduced her to his world not as a girlfriend or a lover, but as his partner, an equal, someone who stood beside him, not behind him. She attended meetings with other bosses. She sat next to Vincent as he negotiated deals worth millions of dollars, listening, watching, learning how the underworld truly worked. At first, the doubtful and dismissive stares from men raised on violence grated on her skin. But over time, when they saw the way Vincent treated her, the way he asked her opinion before making important decisions, they began to look at her differently. Not as a piece of jewelry on the boss's arm, but as a force that demanded respect. Ava discovered she had a talent she never expected. After 6 years as an emergency room nurse, seeing people in their most vulnerable moments, she had developed an instinctive ability to read them. She saw what others tried to hide, the faint tremble of a finger when someone lied, the sideways flick of the eyes when someone kept a secret, the tension in a shoulder when betrayal was close. And that ability had saved Vincent 1 month ago. It had been a meeting with a family out of Boston, a partnership that looked perfect on paper. But as Ava sat in the conference room and watched the man representing the other family, she sensed something was wrong. The way he avoided meeting Vincent's eyes, the way he kept touching his collar, as if loosening something tightening around his throat, the way he offered too much without demanding enough. After the meeting, she pulled Vincent aside and told him what she had seen. Vincent sent Sal to investigate. They discovered the Boston family was under FBI surveillance, trying to drag the Morettis into their mess so the fallout would be shared. If Vincent had signed that deal, he could have lost everything. Ava had saved him, not with a gun, but with eyes that could see through a man's soul. Tonight, they stood on the penthouse balcony, looking out over the city glittering below. The night wind was cool, carrying the first hint of autumn. Ava leaned on the railing, letting herself taste a rare moment of peace in a life that never stayed calm for long. Vincent stood beside her, unusually quiet. She turned to him and saw a strange tension in his face, as if he were bracing for something important. "Vincent," she said softly, "is something wrong?" He did not answer right away. Instead, he turned to face her, black eyes deep under the city lights. Then he did something Ava never would have imagined. He dropped to one knee. His hand pulled a small black velvet box from the pocket of his jacket. Ava's heart stopped for a beat as he opened it. Inside was a ring, not a bright, showy diamond the way she had expected, but a deep emerald, surrounded by small diamonds, set into a classic gold band, beautiful enough to steal her breath. "This ring belonged to my grandmother," Vincent said, his voice low and full of feeling. "She was the only one in my family who always believed I could become better than my father. She kept this ring her whole life and told me to give it only to the woman I truly loved." He looked up, black eyes meeting her blue-gray ones. "I waited 14 years to find that woman. And you are her, Ava Mitchell. Marry me, not because of politics, not because of alliances or power, but because I love you, because you saved my life, not once but twice, because you showed me I can be more than what I thought I was, because a life without you is something I do not want to imagine." Ava looked down at him, the most powerful man in the Northeast, kneeling at her feet, eyes full of hope and fear like a boy waiting for an answer. She thought about the path that had brought them here, The stormy night on the mountain road, the bullet she had pulled from his body, the days of recovery in the cabin, the first kiss under moonlight, the warehouse full of gunfire, and 3 months of building a life together. She had lost Maddie. She had believed she would never deserve happiness again. But now, with Vincent kneeling before her, she understood life had given her a second chance, and she would not let it slip away. "Yes," she whispered, tears beginning to fall. "Yes, I will marry you, Vincent Moretti." Vincent's smile broke open like sunlight. He rose, slid the emerald ring onto her finger, then pulled her into his arms and kissed her as if it were the last day on earth. 2 years later, the small room at the end of the penthouse hallway had been transformed completely. The white walls were now painted a gentle mint green, with hand-painted white clouds drifting near the ceiling. An oak crib sat in the corner, beside a rocking chair Vincent had custom-made for her. A bookshelf was filled with fairy tales and soft toys. This was a room of hope, of the future, of a new life waiting to be welcomed. Ava stood in the middle of the room, one hand resting on her 8-month belly, the other brushing the side of the crib. Inside her, their little girl kicked softly, as if greeting her mother. She closed her eyes, and for the first time in 4 years, when she thought of Maddie, she did not feel that choking guilt. Instead, she felt love, pure and warm. She remembered her little sister's smile, her bright laugh every time Ava tickled her belly, the way she hugged Ava each night before bed. The memories were no longer knives in Ava's heart. They were precious stones she kept close, reminders of a love that had existed and would exist forever. "What are you thinking about?" Vincent's voice came from behind her, and she felt his familiar arms slide around her waist, his hands settling on her belly beside hers. He had come in without her noticing. 2 years together, and her heart still beat faster whenever he was near. "I am thinking about Maddie," she whispered, leaning back into his chest. "And about our daughter." Vincent did not speak. He only held her tighter, letting her know he was listening. "If it is a girl," Ava went on, her voice trembling with emotion, "I want to name her Madison, to remember Maddie, so my sister will know she is never forgotten." Vincent pressed a soft kiss to the top of her head. "Madison Moretti," he said, warm, perfect. Nana would like that name. They stood in silence for a long moment, looking toward the window where the sunset was turning the sky red. Ava thought of the journey that had brought her here. The stormy night 2 years ago on a mountain road in Montana, a stranger lying in the road with 2 bullets in his body, the reckless decision to take him home instead of calling the police. She had believed she was saving his life, but now, looking back, she understood the truth. He had saved her, pulled her out of the swamp of guilt and loneliness, given her a reason to live, to love, to hope, given her a new family when she thought she had lost everything. "What do you see?" Vincent asked, his voice light as breath. "When you look into the future." Ava smiled, turning within his arms, lifting her face to the black eyes she had loved from the first moment under the rain. "Everything," she whispered. "I see everything. Our daughter growing up in this room, you teaching her to ride a bike, me telling her about Aunt Maddie, mornings waking up beside each other, long nights listening to our child breathe. I see life, real life. The thing I gave up 2 years ago when I believed I did not deserve to live." Vincent lifted her hand and kissed the emerald ring still resting on her left ring finger. "You deserve every good thing, Ava Moretti," he said, his voice firm, "and I will spend my whole life proving that to you." Outside the window, the sun sank toward the horizon, bathing the city in blazing gold and orange. And in the small room prepared for the child not yet born, the 2 of them stood there, holding each other, looking toward the future. A future they had built from the ashes of the past. A future full of hope, love, and healing. Ava and Vincent's story has come to an end, but the lessons it carries will echo for a long time. Sometimes salvation comes from the places we least expect. Sometimes saving someone else is the way we save ourselves. And most of all, no matter how painful the past is, no matter how much we believe we do not deserve happiness, life still offers a second chance if we are brave enough to take it. Thank you for staying with this story all the way to the end. How did you feel about Ava and Vincent's journey? Did this story make you think of anything in your own life? Share your thoughts in the comments below. We truly want to hear what is in your heart. If you enjoyed this video, do not forget to hit like and share so more people can hear meaningful stories like this one. And if you have not subscribed yet, please subscribe and turn on notifications so you do not miss new videos each day. Wishing everyone watching this video good health, a joyful life, and peace each day. Goodbye for now, and I will see you in the next video.